You got a great kid there.
Mm-hmm. Pretty clever.
Like her dad.
From the deepest, darkest recesses of Dangerous Nerds headquarters, Keith Moncrief and Gerry Kissel.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking with us through the credits. And something new today, and it's really special. Instead of me, Keith got a rant.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So let him have it.
Okay. Look, I have been a geek pretty much my entire life. Movies, television, comic books. Mainly a DC guy, but gosh, I love Marvel too. This is just, these last few years have been freaking amazing. Hollywood had done a phenomenal job in bringing a lot of these characters that I grew up with out into the wider public and to the wider world. I enjoy watching all of these characters that I've grown up with. Fantastic Four, Captain America, Submariner, every member of the Justice League, the Avengers, heck, even the Challengers of the Unknown.
And of course the Teen Titans.
Of course. So, one of the things that has stood out for me growing up was that it's well known, having grown up in the 70s, that you didn't see too many characters of color in comics. Looking at a lot of the Marvel comics, Marvel, I think, did pretty well for themselves in having a lot of different characters to populate their universe. DC isn't known by a lot of modern day audiences for having a lot of characters, but they also did well. They could have done better, but they did well for themselves. There are a lot of characters within the DC pantheon of characters that look like me and do all kinds of different stuff. Unfortunately, it seems like Warner Brothers especially has no flipping idea that a lot of these characters exist. I mean, how many times do I have to sit through another discussion with some creative where they've had to make a certain decision and they want to include more characters of color within what they're doing and decide, hey, instead of calling up somebody in the archives of DC, calling up maybe the nearest comic book shop, no, it's how would it look if we took this established character over here and just made them, oh, I don't know, black? Okay. So then you change the character's race. You're not really doing me any favors as a fan, you know. You're not building anything with that character ultimately. All you're doing is just changing a character because you realize that you aren't using black characters especially, but really characters of color at all within what you're creating. I think it would make more sense to actually just, I don't know, just take one of the characters that already exist and do something radical like write them better. you don't just throw out a character because you're trying to make yourself seem like you're all inclusive. By changing that character's race, and in certain cases gender, and then just forgetting all the other characters over here, mainly because you don't know who they are. You know, one of the smartest characters in the DC universe is John Henry Irons. I have rarely seen anyone decide to use that character. And in my personal opinion, it probably would have made more sense for the CW Arrow universe to have built John Henry Irons as their smart tech guy, since he's already that anyway within all the shows that you were doing. Don't get me wrong. You know, having Cisco be that guy is great, but that particular character in the comics wasn't really like that. I'm not saying he couldn't eventually learn, but it shows, in my opinion, a lack of understanding of the characters. And don't give me this, oh, we're just trying to do something slightly different than the comics. That's fine. So you want to cover up for the fact that you really don't know what the heck you're doing. And so you just made changes because that's what you know. There are dozens upon dozens of characters of color that for whatever reason are sitting unused, mainly in the DC vaults. And don't get me started on what Fox did when they had the X-Men, because they have a lot of characters of color they never even thought about using. Although they did at least use some of them the right way. But DC, you guys got a lot of work to do. You know, there are so many characters that you could go and just create whole films around. You don't need to take an already established character and then just flip them a different way. And one other thing. Brian Michael Bendis, I know you love characters of color, and it's great and everything. I see what you did in creating Miles Morales. Thank you. But this whole Legion of Superheroes thing, you do realize that there was a character of color in those comics. Why couldn't you have just given that character more to do and wrote them better? You really need to look into the history of the Titans, and don't be afraid to go back beyond the 80s, go into the 70s, and look at a lot of the characters.
Which is when I started reading.
Yeah.
Wonder Girl.
Well, of course, I'm thinking of Bumblebee and her boyfriend, you know, Mal. And it's, hey, two characters of color that you could have had on Titans. But for whatever reason, you know, Mal is part of the reason why you had some of the storyline that you did in season 2 of Supergirl. You know, that whole thing that they ended up doing with Jimmy Olsen. And also the character of Diggle on Arrow is being used in a way kind of like the character of Mal. Of course, nobody thought to use Mal.
All right, to wrap this up, what would you consider your summation?
Well, again, just use what you have. Use what DC Comics has in the vault, because there are a whole host of characters that have probably, many of you, again, are proving my point by not having been exposed to, that if you use the characters, you could accomplish two things. Again, looking right at you Hollywood types when I say this, use these characters and you will get more than you ever could have bargained for with these characters. They're just, if you need a character, much in the same way that I criticized Fox for their use of the X-Men characters. There are characters that have all different types of powers within the history of the X-Men comics. If you needed a character that could walk on water, if you go through the books, you could probably find a character that walks on water. There's no reason to make something up. Literally, that's next to impossible to do with the X-Men because they have so many characters. I mean, Spider-Man supposedly has over 900 characters, and so at least X-Men's got double that.
And we have encyclopedias on superheroes. All they got to do is open those books. But, you know, that requires work and an interest in doing something based on something. So
don't go around telling people how big of a fan you are of a particular comic book or comic book character. You really haven't done the work. That's really what it comes down to. Because you got to realize, those of us that have been reading quite a while, and at least in my case, I'm probably older than a lot of you people that are writing a lot of that stuff. It wouldn't really even hurt my feelings if you reached out to me and asked for a list of characters to use. But here's the thing you gotta realize. It looks kind of bad when an animated series like Young Justice seems to have a better understanding of how to use different characters who are different racially, sexually, or even in sexual preference than a lot of you live action guys. That just looks bad. So really, if you need to, just ask the writers and the people working on Young Justice, and they'll probably be able to point you to some of the characters that you might need.
I think DC has this practice of keeping them separated.
I know, and that's unfortunate because you could be so much better. And again, you notice, it just seems like not a lot of characters of color wind up on a lot of the other CW shows. They seem to be kind of focusing everything on Black Lightning, who mysteriously seems to be the only mainline superhero that supposedly DC
created in a time when if you had a black character, you had to have black in his name. It's true.
Yeah, but not the only one. I mean, Black Lightning's great, but you know,
there are a lot of other better characters.
Wouldn't it have been easy?
He's sort of like the Riddler in Batman. He was sort of a B character, not an A character.
Yeah.
You had a lot of really cool A characters they could have pulled. Well, you know, that's the CW. That's Greg Berlanti and
John Henry Irons. Remember that name.
He should have been a main character in Supergirl, and I agree with that. And in fact, the guy that plays Jimmy Olsen
would have made an incredible
He would have been perfect as Irons.
I mean, you would have had it all. You almost wouldn't have even needed to create the DEO because oh man, yeah, don't get me started.
Yeah, don't get me started.
Don't get me started.
Because I'm not really trying to like kill anybody with my words here. I'm just saying.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
I'm just saying, as an actual black man who's been reading comics probably longer
You're
than
black?
I know, right? I see things, I read things, and then when you read interviews with a lot of these people and they say stuff like, "Hey, I'm the biggest fan in the world," and then you
No,
see
you're
them,
not.
You see
because
them,
a big fan wouldn't have done what you did.
That's it. That's the
It's
difference.
a simple argument of logic. No, a fan wouldn't have done that.
And this is the reason why Kevin Feige's so cool.
He rocks. And with that, we're going to go to commercial. Hey guys, thanks for coming back. And right now we're going to talk about a couple of things, and then we're going to go into the Zeitgeist.
Quick bits.
Yeah, and now the first thing we want to talk about is...
Well, James Gunn's movie, The Suicide Squad, just added 2 potential actors. Actor Peter Capaldi, formerly of Doctor Who, and Pete Davidson from Saturday Night Live are looking at joining the Suicide Squad cast that currently includes or is being negotiated by Nathan Fillion, Idris Elba, and returning cast members from the first film that include Margot Robbie and Joel Kinnaman. So,
which I think is wonderful because, adding Capaldi is like saying we decided to make a spicy dish a little spicier by adding some angry spices with big angry eyebrows. Because he's a great actor.
He is.
But then, and we've added Pete Davidson. It's sort of like, crickets.
Well, hopefully Pete Davidson and whatever humor he has will be balanced out by having Taika Waititi in the movie.
He's funny.
Yeah.
Pete Davidson is like the single least talented member of the SNL cast and crew. It's sort of like
and Taika, really, you're coming back to be in another DC Comics movie? So I guess you didn't get enough with Green Lantern. Love you, buddy, but hey.
Yeah. So that's that news, and then of course we get another bit of news with it deals with Marvel's 1000.
Yeah. Look, you have this big book that's supposed to cover all of Marvel's history and all these talented people that in some form or fashion have at one time worked on a Marvel book, worked within the Marvel company, but you don't have Jim Steranko.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ring a bell?
I mean, seriously?
He brought Marvel Comics into the 70s.
Into the 60s, really. Because he helped Nick Fury go from being a World War II hero. He was the one.
Oh, that's what I mean, though. I'm talking about that because it was at the end of the 60s, going into the 70s.
Yeah.
They transitioned from the Silver Age comics to modern comics with his artwork, and what he did was so weird and off the wall.
But it worked.
It worked, and his characters were cool, and it changed Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
After that is when we started seeing the drop in the use of the comic code, and Stan Lee taking a stand with talking about drug abuse.
Yeah.
With Spider-Man and with his college roommate and best friend Harry Osborn.
Yeah.
Comic code wanted nothing to do with it. But then you noticed something recently.
Yeah, a lot of the 80s. Well, one particular comic run, X Factor, 1986. The comic code appears on the covers of the books.
And I thought that stuff ended in the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm a little out there, but if any of you out there can actually see if any other Marvel books had the comics code on their covers, contact us. Let us know, because I'm kind of surprised.
I'm really curious now, too. It's like, how did I miss that? And now, the Zeitgeist. And number one, Sony Spider-Man.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. This right here is a good example of how corporate filmmaking is just sort of seeping into everything.
Everything. And of course, we got the news that Sony and Tom Rothman were all excited because the door closed. They like to make a sad face. Like they didn't want this to happen, but go on.
Basically, look, all you people out there who are excited that Disney will no longer have Spider-Man need to either remember, or if this is your first time, understand who Tom Rothman and the rest of his people that he has to be Team Spider-Man to handle all of this stuff are. Tom Rothman is the guy that was responsible for canceling Firefly. That nice TV series that a whole lot of people liked, but nobody ever really saw season 2.
He was also singularly responsible for sewing Deadpool's mouth shut.
Oh yeah, for X-Men Origins Wolverine. He cut the budget of the first X-Men movie because, he doesn't understand comics.
Doesn't care.
He does not like genre films, or at least sci-fi, fantasy, action, adventure genre. All that, he doesn't get it. He does not understand it no matter what he says, he doesn't understand it at all, and hates seemingly Marvel stuff in particular. So, you don't want him in charge. Oh, but he's currently running Sony.
And Avi Arad, all he has
Is this.
is this. This is all he has. And he resents Kevin Feige
Among
personally
others, yeah.
because Kevin Feige got Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
When Avi Arad felt it was his place to get that.
Yeah.
Because he was the one who betrayed everybody to build the Fox deal.
Both of these guys have the same mentality. They are men in their late 60s into their 70s that are like 13-year-old high school girls that if you say something about them,
Mean Girls.
oh yeah, they're like the Mean Girls. They have a burn book. Trust me, they do. They are going after every single person who has ever wronged them for anything.
And Kevin Feige is number one on both of their lists.
So having him out of contention to do anything with Spider-Man has always been part of the plan. I don't give a care how you think it worked in. These guys are gonna ruin everything, and they ruined Spider-Man.
And worse than this, Marvel's going to end up getting it back anyway because they're playing the long game. Because Sony is already in financial dire straits. Earlier this year, they were in trouble. They kind of came out of it thanks to Spider-Man and Disney Marvel's help. Mm-hmm. But now they're going to slowly head right back into the same territory.
And here's the thing that's really going to really just cause you guys to go insane. You may not remember this, but Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 were really those two big things that really Avi Arad had to really showcase his knowledge and use of Spider-Man. This is him unfettered, okay? One of the things that killed Fox's use, in my mind, of X-Men is how much money they were spending. Both those films had budgets. Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2 had budgets in excess of over $200 million apiece. Making the MCU Spider-Man films, Kevin Feige was able to bring those budgets way down and increase profits.
And that's the problem with corporate filmmaking.
Yes.
A lot of the time is inflated budgets.
Yeah, just throw money at it. Which is exactly, kind of, sort of, some of the weird stuff that was happening behind the scenes with both the X-Men franchise and, of course, a lot of the stuff that was going on with Warner Brothers. You know, when Zack Snyder was there. There's still a lot of you that refuse to believe that Warner Brothers corporate overseers had anything to do with how things went with Zack Snyder. Trust me, it did. Still it does.
It still does, exactly. On to number 2. And tied in to what we were just talking about is talking about more corporate filmmaking. Because that's pretty much it. Studio art films, shit like that doesn't exist anymore.
And even when they did, you still had people just poking in everything. Look, the 90s had a lot of romantic comedies and couple movies made. The reason why they didn't do it anymore wasn't because of comic book movies. It was the fact that you were overproducing, just like what we had come to in Hollywood prior with the Westerns. Where basically the idea was just give everybody more of what they liked. So you overproduce. You don't spend any real time on the quality of the scripts and the quality of the acting, let alone the quality of set design or anything else. You're just mass producing everything, and when you do
that, cookie cutter, you know, what we're seeing is cookie cutter films that have to hit these hash marks, check marks, and if those check marks aren't there, that film's not going to get made.
So adult films, romantic comedies, other things like that didn't suffer because of comic book movies or action films. It suffered because of the corporate mandate to be able to mass produce everything.
Exactly.
Like you're basically running off Model T Fords.
And this brings us to the second one, which is Star Wars.
Yes.
Star Wars is Thor Skywalker, and we listen to Gary Beekler at Nerdrotic. We listen to a lot of the guys. I listen to Star Wars Girl, and Midnight's Edge. And we have a tendency of, and I interact with a lot of them, and a lot of our friends on YouTube know who I am because I'm always commenting. But the fact is Midnight's Edge just did that little film.
Yeah.
That broke down Star Wars and how it went to shit, why it went to shit, and why it's not going to come back from it.
Unfortunately.
Because it's a whole corporate filmmaking thing, which is what we're seeing with Star Wars. And I was trying to explain that because Thor Skywalker was talking about how we got to this point with the storytelling, and I kind of corrected him. I said, no, there was a plan.
Yeah.
JJ wrote out a plan, a basic story arc from episode 7 through 9 that would explain how things were going to go. And when he stepped away to go work on, I can't remember what it was it Star Trek or something?
Well,
it was something non-Star Wars related.
Yeah.
And Kathleen Kennedy basically saw it as, well, he quit. So we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And she gets Rian Johnson to come in, and they're going to rework the trilogy and go with their own thing. But Colin Trevorrow, was basing his script for episode 9 off of what JJ had planned.
Yes.
And that's why you kept hearing these reports that there was this clashing, and he was begging them not to do things. And it eventually led to his unceremonious departure. They fired him.
That worked out for Solo, didn't it?
This is corporate filmmaking at its worst.
Look,
or best, however you want to look at it.
My biggest problem with this particular trilogy is this is meant, it's called episode 7, 8, 9, okay? You are ending the Skywalker saga. Remember, this is the Skywalker saga. This isn't, hey, let's have a bunch of battles and some bad guys and good guys. It's a story that is unfolding, told over 9 films. Well, episode 7 is the final trilogy of this big story. So you're ending everything. You're not beginning something bigger and new. And the problem that I have with it is that The Force Awakens, and especially The Last Jedi, don't seem like anything that's coming to an end. And that's my biggest problem.
They're incoherent to a trilogy.
Yes, they're incoherent to a 9-movie series that is ending. If you wanted to start something completely brand new with a whole bunch of different characters, a lot of what we've seen up to now kind of makes sense. But if you're ending the Skywalker saga, none of this makes sense.
And it really doesn't. And what we're seeing, like with the trailer, and we've got a mutual friend who just loved that trailer. And I'm sitting there just going, how can you just got handed the whole nostalgia thing, which is we got to watch the original part of the series, and not in chronological order, but in release order.
Yeah.
So we saw episode 6, A New Hope, and then Empire, and Return of the Jedi, and then we get the prequel in order. That trilogy's in order, the next trilogy's in order, then we come to the new trilogy, and they show clips from the Force Awakens, and then
The Last
Jedi.
Yeah.
And basically, what you got there is linear storytelling. A form of it.
Yes.
It's a form of linear storytelling. And then we have this new film, and then you just slop a bunch of stuff out there that don't tell any kind of story. Nothing coherent, just images. And
it's a bad trailer.
They really use it. It's a really bad trailer. And this mutual friend of ours is just like, I love it, lapping it up. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? How are you not seeing this? It's sort of like, when you walk up to those 3D pictures that you cross your eyes to look at, and you're seeing it, and another guy's seeing it. There's that one guy that's like, I don't see it. That's how I feel about these people that are seeing this trailer going, oh, it's awesome. And I'm like, no, it's not. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't give you anything.
I mean, here's the big thing.
It plays on your nostalgia, and that's it.
That's right. The First Order. What really is their game plan? Seriously.
They have no game plan.
You had 2 movies to set these guys up to give us a game plan.
They turned them into a punchline.
Yeah, the entire thing is a punchline. You have all these amazing actors like Max von Sydow. What's the point of having him in the movie for like 4 minutes?
JJ cannot write. Kasdan is the only thing I think that saved episode 7. And then, of course, Rian Johnson writes the episode 8 by himself. And he's admitted he's a terrible writer.
Yeah, he's a nerd in the basement having a sugar fever dream that only really makes sense to
It's
himself.
fan fiction
Now
at
again,
its worst.
The Last Jedi is a great Star Wars movie in its own separate thing that is not the middle part of a trilogy meant to end the Skywalker saga.
And of course, we've heard the rumors this week through Midnight's Edge
Yes.
and others that Luke didn't die, that he's not a Force ghost in this, but he does travel like a Force ghost, and that's why you didn't see his hand fall off at the end, because it was, basically what we're hearing is a lot of retconning.
Basically.
And, JJ is not the guy for that job. I don't know about the other dude that worked on the script with him. I forget his name. But it's just,
Basically,
there's nothing that feels good about it.
Basically, the mandate came down from Alan Horn to un-F this situation, basically, after The Last Jedi. And again, I get it. It made a lot of money. So did The Force Awakens. But really, guys...
If it's only about making money,
then okay.
Leave the rest of us out of it.
Yeah.
Stop trying to get legacy fans to come, because we cared about Star Wars as a story.
You had Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca and Lando. You could have put them in Episode 7, and if you still wanted to kill Han, you could have. And if you needed to extend Luke's run, you could have been about Luke having to fight against the bad guys who helped in killing his brother-in-law.
And of course, Mark Hamill's joke this week just really landed well with fans, legacy fans, with the StarWars.com had asked that poll question, like, what is the best Luke Skywalker quote? And Mark Hamill posted blank quote.
Yeah,
and then he wrote, and then he wrote, Force Awakens. I'm like, there you go. Mark gets it.
Yeah.
That's why we love Mark so much. And now we move on to number 3. I'm sure everybody's seen the trailer by now. The Joker. And
Todd Phillips.
it's like, I have seen just tons of reviews coming in from cons praising the film, except for over on RogerEbert.com.
And a few others that didn't like the film.
And they felt that it failed on every level.
Yeah.
Which I found interesting.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to, comment on just a couple of things differently. But to have walked away from the film and completely had a different reaction to it, utterly, is kind of mind-blowing. And I have a tendency of liking RogerEbert.com's critics.
Mm-hmm.
He tended to have really good critics on it. So I'm paying attention to it. But that trailer, that looks good.
Well, it did exactly what you wanted to do. The purpose of a trailer is to take wherever you are, and as John Campea likes to say, just move you from here to here.
To give you an idea of what the story is.
Yeah.
To give you the feels.
And to make you...
And not give away the fucking ending.
And so if you feel good or better about something after you've seen the trailer, that is the purpose of the trailer.
Exactly. It's to get you to want to see the movie.
Yeah.
If you put too much in a trailer, which we complain all the time about, where they put too much. I mean, how many trailers have you seen where they put the last moment on screen in the trailer? Or the biggest reveal in the trailer? Stop doing that. This trailer gives you a lot of things, but it doesn't give you the answer.
It gives you a good feeling. It gives you the feeling of what the movie is without giving anything away.
Yeah,
and that's
like,
always a trick. That it really is like a
I mean,
burlesque.
we have not seen, and we know that he's apparently a murderer in the film. He kills people, but they don't give that away even remotely, except for in one passing image from a newspaper cover.
Yes.
And so I'm looking forward to seeing this. I know that Todd Phillips is a huge Scorsese fan, which is how they snagged Robert De Niro in the first place.
And gotten Scorsese to help out in producing.
Yeah.
Look, this film is kind of like, it's a comic book superhero film through the lens of a Martin Scorsese
made to look like Taxi Driver
and
the comedian movie that he made.
with
With De Niro.
Yeah.
And Jerry Lewis.
Yeah. I'm a bad fan that I can't remember the name of the film. But look, seriously, if you're a Scorsese fan, this film's going to seem just a little bit familiar to you. and the king of comedy. But you gotta understand, okay? While there are always detractors, and while it's always a bunch of cheerleaders, in the end, it's really gonna depend on what you.
Is it a good film, and did you like it?
That's right.
You know,
so basically, that's gonna be a thing until the movie comes out.
And now we move to number 4. What we've got here is 2 anniversaries. 2. Number 1 is, of course, Batman the Animated Series.
Which premiered September 5th.
Yep, 1992.
Yeah.
And I know where I was. I was in a hotel leaving Sacramento going to Seattle. And we stopped halfway and stayed in a hotel just so I could watch that.
Yeah.
Because I did not want to miss that.
It was amazing, and I think it was a prime time premiere.
It was.
Which made it really different. And I think it was the Red Claw episode.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, and that was, and the villain was voiced by actress.
I don't remember.
She only did it one time. Orange is the New Black, Star Trek, Voyager.
Oh, Creek, Allison Creek?
No. Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, Catherine Janeway.
Yeah. Man,
Irish.
I'm a bad.
She played
Kate
Catherine.
Mulgrew.
Kate Mulgrew.
Yeah, voice of Red Claw.
It was the thing that was really interesting because like a buddy of mine that's a comic pro commented on my page, and I said, yeah, I felt the same way when you see that opening animation. We thought that would somehow be panned out throughout the season, and it ended up not being anywhere in the season. And I was kind of confused by that. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it'll be season 2, and then season 2 came, and I was like, no, I don't know what happened. And what we found out later was that animation for the opening was done separately.
Yeah.
It was actually part of the package to help sell the idea of the show, that style of animation.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's neat. And so they ended up just using it. They did something similar to that with Johnny Quest. You remember that some of the animation at the beginning of Johnny Quest had the animation of things that was never in the show.
That's because it was originally meant for a different animated
different
series.
show. And they just kept some of the clips that didn't have those characters in it, but with the bad guys, the villains.
Yeah.
And that's why it was in there. And I like that they did that with Batman. And of course, the second anniversary
is actually September 6th.
So we're close.
1996. So that was the premiere of Superman the Animated Series.
By the same producers.
Yeah. And
same
a lot of
showrunner.
the same writers, and
of course Kevin Conroy would appear
occasionally as Batman in probably one of the best crossover episodes ever done for any animated series or
I agree wholeheartedly.
series. World's Finest, which was phenomenal. That should have been a big screen premiere. They should have just re-edited that and made that a big screen.
major film.
Yeah. Oh, that was amazing. But in fact, if they had just turned that into a live-action movie, there you go. But yeah, both.
And that's the problem we have with a lot of the films is that they have this wealth of stories, and they'll make them into the animated shows, but they won't do it for a live action.
Yeah.
And you're like, why? It's good storytelling.
You got stuff. You know, it's the same thing I kept saying about Fox for years about X-Men. You got a mountain, a literal, really just. It's Kilimanjaro.
And here's your typical executive. But mountains require climbing.
And then Tom goes, I don't get it. No.
We're talking about Tom Rothman. Anyway, now we move on to number 5. Of course, the big news right now this last week was that Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son, is now joining the Marvel MCU.
Just like his old man.
Yep. And he's going to be playing the character of Walker, U.S. agent. And he is, and I'm not sure if he's going to be sort of like a contrary character to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like an adversary, or what it's going to be. And I'm curious.
It'll be kind of like that, I think. But basically, if you haven't heard, and again, this isn't meant to spoil so much. It's just, you know, this is stuff that's already out there. Which is that the United States government doesn't want Sam Wilson to be Captain America.
Which I think is an interesting plot point as long as they don't do the stupid racist thing.
Yeah, and again, the understanding is that since these Disney Plus shows are tied literally into the films, the understanding is that you got to understand where both Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes are within the MCU story.
Which is, one, Falcon is not a modified human being.
Yeah.
He just wears a special suit with wings.
And two, the other thing is, when it came time to do the bidding of the United States government and support the Sokovia Accords, Sam Wilson went with Steve Rogers.
That's
who
right.
Basically was
Broke
breaking
ranks and betrayed his country.
So basically,
Technically.
and I think, he was.
And Winter Soldier, he was run by the Russians.
Yeah, he was.
And he was an assassin for the Russians.
And he ended
So
up
he
killing,
will never be Captain America.
He killed probably the biggest contractor that was ever working with the United States government. So that both those people are kind of...
And his wife.
Yeah, are out of the running to become Captain America. And so the United States government basically made their own new Captain America, which is...
Which also explains why Wilson was saying that he is not Captain America in the show.
That's right.
And I thought that was interesting. Like, why did he say that? What's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me goosebumps just now. I got goosebumps. It's either I'm excited about that or we're haunted. According to Ghost Adventures. Whenever you have goosebumps, you're haunted.
Actually, you're not haunted because the black guy hasn't left yet.
Yeah. I was just talking about that the other day with my girlfriend, Deanna. I was like saying, I said, I grew up in Virginia, and a majority of my friends were black guys. And I lived in a haunted house. Now, Jim Woodward, who's a co-producer on this show, came to my house. Mike Beatty, one of my oldest best friends in the world, came to my house. Now, one of my black friends would come to that house.
That's right.
And I had one actually tell me, he goes, I'll wait for you outside. I will honk. I'm like, come in the house. There's not that kind of ghost here. No, that's okay. They wanted nothing to do with ghosts. And that cracks me up because now there's a TV show, Ghost Brothers. Have you seen it? I love this show. I'm like going, oh my God, they're going into the room with the ghost. They're not because they did an SNL skit that was hilarious with what's her name from Ghostbusters reboot, the big tall black.
Oh yeah, Leslie Jones.
Leslie Jones, she was hilarious in that. She's like a skeptic supposedly, but she gets in there, she's like, oh no, and she's like, I don't want to be anywhere near that. And that was just slaying me because that took me back to when I was like, young in Virginia, and all my black friends wouldn't come over to my haunted house, not one.
And we don't play with that. I'm sorry.
All right, so we have a signal coming in. That must be from D.D. Crowley.
D.D. The latest on games and what we should know.
Her last one was really good on aliens, so I can see what we got here. Take it away, D.D.
From her gothic lair, Game Girl host D.D. Crowley.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Game Girl. As you can see, my environment has changed quite a bit. I finally have my own little corner of spooky space. I have my little Halloween tree here. I got my David Bowie. It's because it's September, and that means it's spooky season. It's spooky time all year long for me, but I get to be spooky and nobody thinks I'm weird now. What does that have to do with what I'm talking about today? Absolutely nothing, because what I want to talk to you about is probably one of the coolest shows I've ever come across. It's a show called HarmonQuest, and if you have a PlayStation or an Xbox or a phone or a computer, I mean, that's pretty much all of you, you might have an app called Verve, VRV, and I have been a fan of this show since its very first season, and this is a Verve exclusive. The very first season is free, but then you need a premium pass for 2 and the new 3rd season. I'm pretty sure that all of you know Rick and Morty. Well, one of the creators of Rick and Morty, Dan Harmon, also has the show HarmonQuest. I wonder why. Where he plays with a bunch of his friends and they play a tabletop RPG. It's not D&D. It's not D&D. It's D&D-esque. For legal reasons. But even though it's HarmonQuest, the real star of the show, as Dan says every episode, is Spencer Crittenden, and he is the game master. And basically, if you've never played a tabletop role-playing game, is you'll have a game master who creates scenarios, and then you'll have the players, and they will go along with his scenario and make choices and decisions, and the game master will roll a set of dice. Roll a set of die that will basically determine if they succeed or if they fail. And then, if they succeed, is it a critical hit? Is it, how many damage points are they taking or are they giving, and things like that. So every week, right now, since season 3 has premiered, every week they release one episode, but you have to watch the first 2 seasons to be able to understand what's going on. There are 3 constant role players. That is Dan Harmon, of course, Erin McGathy, who is his ex-wife, but they still play together, and comedian Jeff B. Davis. Erin's character is Bior O'Shift. Dan Harmon is Fondue Zubag, and Jeff B. Davis is Bone Weevil. And the best part of this whole thing is it cool enough to watch a handful of people play role-playing games? Yeah, it is fun because, Critical Role does it all the time, and it's entertaining, especially when they get into it. Oh, one important fact is that every single week they will have a guest role player. There's been, Aziz Ansari, Nathan Fillion, Janet Varney. That was one of my favorite episodes. And Patton Oswalt. There's just a whole bunch of people. Some recurring, some not. It's just a lot of fun. And the best part about this is that you get to see them do this role playing, but it's animated. So you'll see them sitting around the table, and there's a bunch of snacks and everything like that, and they're talking about what they're doing, but then it jumps to this animated version of themselves as their characters, and you get to actually see what happens. It's super funny, it's super entertaining, and something that I think is the best part about it is that it kind of brings tabletop gaming to a whole new group of people. It started in the 70s, it was big. My dad he was a dungeon master, which is a game master, but he played Dungeons and Dragons. So I grew up with the knowledge of tabletop games, RPGs, things like that. But a lot of people didn't. And so what HarmonQuest does is that it offers this style of gaming to a whole new generation and makes it interesting with the animated bits. I mean, you have Dan Harmon, who's naturally funny. Jeff B. Davis is hilarious. Erin McGathy is so funny, and it's just their chemistry together is great. And then you have all of the guests in there that just pumps it up. It's such a good show. I will literally sit and count the days down to Sunday with season 3 to find out, because the stories continue. This is a years-long campaign that these people are in and that we get to follow along with, and they have a live audience, so it's they get to see them act it out, we get to see it in action and in animation. So I think that that's a really cool aspect of it. If you haven't watched HarmonQuest, it appears on Verve every single Sunday. I don't really honestly know what time it happens, but there is a new episode every single Sunday on Verve. If you like anime and Geek and Sundry, and Shudder used to be on there, but it's not anymore, which is weird, and so is Drama Fever, which was also disappointing that it is gone now. But things like Critical Role you get to watch on there. Movies that are based around video games, I think, are some of the best ones. You have shows like The Guild and VGHS and Critical Role and Game the Game and I think it was Tabletop with Will Wheaton. And there's just so many. I mean, if you can watch hours of people playing video games, it's just as entertaining to watch people play tabletop games. I promise you. If you give it a shot, I think you're going to love it. But I highly recommend, this video is not I'm not gaining anything from people watching HarmonQuest. I think it's just a legitimately amazing show that you should check it out. You are definitely missing out by not watching it. So Thank you guys so much for watching Game Girl this week. I will see you guys next week. I have some spooky horror themed content coming your way. Probably mostly Resident Evil thing. Don't judge me, I'm a fan. But yeah, have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Let's quest.
Another great segment from D.D. Crowley.
Love it.
I'm so glad she joined us. And hey, Susan, we miss you. We love you. I hope we talk to you again real soon, because I'm always talking to you on Facebook because you're one of my closest friends online. Anyway, thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for watching. And see you guys next week. And y'all come back now, you hear?
Stay geeky.
That's right, and roll those credits.
Y'all come back now, you hear?